Hi, Disease and Society class. My name is Catherine Schwenk, and today I am going to be presenting on Zika virus. So Zika virus is a virus in the family Flaviviridae in the genus Flavivirus. So it is in the same family as dengue fever, yellow fever, West Nile virus. It is a single-stranded RNA virus. It is enveloped and has icosahedral proteins. It is also an arbovirus, which means it is primarily transmitted through arthropod vector. Like other members of its family, dengue, West Nile, it's transmitted through mosquitoes, and they are all arboviruses. So Zika virus is primarily transmitted through the infected Aedes species mosquito. There are several types of mosquitoes in this species. There is a picture of one of them over there. Sorry for the picture of the gross bug. It can also be spread human to human through contract transmission, so it can be spread through sexual relations. It can be spread through congenital transmission, which is when an infected mother passes a disease onto her unborn child in utero. It can also be spread through perinatal transmission, which is when an infected mother can give the virus to her child through labor or shortly after birth. There have been a few cases of laboratory transmission of Zika virus. There is also the possibility of blood donor transmission. No Zika virus case has ever been confirmed to have been caused through a blood transfusion, but they once did a study where they tested blood donations for Zika virus, and they found that some had Zika virus in the blood, so it is possible to get Zika virus through a blood transfusion with the blood of an infected person. So a little bit about the history of Zika virus. Zika virus was first identified in Uganda in 1947 in a monkey. There were a team of scientists out there doing research on similar viruses, and they noticed this disease in a monkey. It was isolated from that monkey. A new disease was discovered. It was then found the next year in the Aedes mosquitoes, which is the primary transmitter of the virus. It was later found in humans in 1952 in Uganda and the Republic of Tanzania. Then there was sporadic human infection from the 1960s to the 1980s, very few cases, very mild cases. Then there was almost no incidence from the 1990s until the first Zika outbreak in 2007, so it kind of disappeared for a while, and then it burst back onto the scene in 2007 with a legitimate outbreak in the Pacific. We will get to that in a couple minutes. So 80% of Zika virus cases are asymptomatic. In my research, I could not find any numbers on deaths attributed to Zika virus. It's described as a very mild disease. Symptoms only manifest themselves in 20% of cases. Hospitalization is very rare. The disease can cause itching due to this rash over here. This rash is characteristic of Zika virus. Fever, headaches, conjunctivitis, which is red eyes or bloodshot eyes, pain behind the eyes, muscle pain, and then joint pain with swelling. If you notice joint swelling, it's primarily going to be in these smaller joints in the hands and feet where swelling is more noticeable. So who is at risk for Zika virus? So primarily people who are at risk for Zika virus live in countries with a risk of Zika virus. Countries with the risk of Zika virus are countries that have the Aedes species mosquito that lives there locally and have reported Zika virus cases in the past. There is also the possibility of emergence in countries that have the Aedes species mosquito but have never recorded possible Zika incidents. This can happen if an infected person would travel to that country, get bitten by one of these Aedes species mosquitoes, which would then go on to bite and infect other people. What I would say are the patients who are most at risk for Zika virus are unborn children whose mothers contract Zika. They have a risk of birth defects. This has been noted in about 5 to 10% of cases. It was only noticed relatively recently with the recent outbreaks. There's the greatest risk of birth defects in the first trimester. So if the mother gets the Zika virus in the first trimester, there is more of a likelihood that her child will have birth defects than if she contracts the disease in the second or third trimester. These birth defects are known as congenital Zika syndrome, and the most concerning birth defect is microcephaly. So microcephaly is a condition which can be caused by Zika virus because the virus attacks the cells of the brain, which in utero can inhibit brain development. So the brain of the baby is undeveloped, which leads to this small head size that you can see on this picture. And if you need another frame of reference, just pause the video and jump back to the first slide. I have a picture there that compares the normal brain and size head in a normal child with a child with microcephaly, and you can see in that picture the contrast of the smaller brain size and the smaller head. So symptoms of microcephaly are hyperactivity, facial distortions, delays in movement and speech. They can have difficulty sitting up on their own, difficulty sleeping, difficulty eating. It causes seizures, small head size, as I mentioned, and coordination difficulties. Other complications involved with congenital Zika syndrome are decreased brain tissue with a pattern of brain damage to the back of the eye, and joints with limited range of motion, such as clubfoot. Another complication that can arise from Zika virus, primarily in adults, is Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. This syndrome causes the immune system to damage the nerves in your own body. So this can cause weakness in the arms or the legs. It can last weeks or months, but most fully recover, though some suffer with long-term complications such as paralysis for life. These were noted in connection to Zika virus during the outbreaks between 2014 and 2016, which I'll get to in just a second, where they noticed that mothers who were infected while pregnant with Zika had many children born with microcephaly, and many people who had Zika virus developed this Guillain-Barré syndrome shortly after getting the disease. It was not noted in them prior to the disease. So there is definitely a correlation between these two syndromes and the Zika virus. Outbreaks. The first outbreak happened in 2007, as I mentioned before, on the island of Yap. It was estimated that 73% of the population got the Zika virus. So then in 2013 and 2014, there were outbreaks in French Polynesia, Cook Islands, and New Caledonia. Then the first outbreak in the Americas happened in Easter Island in 2014. In the Americas, it eventually spread to 20 other countries, including the United States. I don't know if any of you remember from a few years ago all the news reports about the dangers of Zika. I do, which was why I chose this disease, because I wanted to find out a little more about it in light of remembering those news articles that I had read a few years ago. The biggest outbreak in the Americas was in Brazil. It was estimated that 440,000 to 1.3 million cases happened in Brazil. People believe that the outbreak in Brazil was due to the FIFA tournament that was held there in 2014, I believe, and Brazil's more tropical climate, which makes it a better habitat for the mosquitoes which spread the virus. So there is no vaccine for Zika virus. The only way to protect yourself from getting the virus is to protect yourself from mosquito bites. So the CDC recommends wearing long sleeve clothing and long pants, using bug sprays such as DEET, using mosquito netting or getting screens for your windows, or living in a place with air conditioning so that the windows do not have to be open. And then to limit Zika transmission sexually, practice safe sex, or abstinence. There is no specific treatment for Zika virus either. The care is mostly supportive to manage the symptoms, so it's rest, fluids to prevent dehydration, and acetaminophen or Tylenol to manage the fever. In light of this, there's a lot of research that needs to be done with Zika virus, not because it is a disease that has a particularly high mortality rate, but because of these troubling birth defects that it causes in children. I really look forward to taking all of your questions on Monday. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thanks and have a great day/night. Bye-bye.